Begin real quick by putting some shape into the canvas. Demet side up, hold up one half of the canvas and steam it, and then let the steam evaporate. Then do the same on the other side. This will give you a more shaped canvas. Having completed your chosen pockets, take the appropriate jacket front, having ironed it, and lay it right side up on top of the canvas, lining up the front dart. The hems should be flush with each other, the grains of the fabric should match, and there should be about 2.5 centimeters along the front still. The break lines should align as well. Between all of that, we can accurately line up the front and the canvas together. To baste the canvas and the forepart together, you'll need to knot each piece of thread. Mark down 12 centimeters from the shoulder above the center front dart. With your knotted basting thread, start a couple of centimeters up from the pocket. You don't want to catch any of the pocket. Just to one side of the dart and start basting upwards towards the mark you made. What's most important when basting the forepart to the canvas is that it is essentially pulled taut or snug over it. Hence, as you baste upwards, smooth the front over the canvas as you stitch until you get to the top and secure the thread there. Leave some thread tailing at the end so that if you made it too tight, then you can always loosen it a little bit. Start the next line halfway between the first and the break line, level with the top button. This time, smooth out the front from the first line of basting, as well as making sure it's smooth going upwards too. However, if the fabric starts pulling and rumpling between the lines, then you've gone too far with it. Finish the line next to where the first finished. Line 3 is 2 centimeters from the break line, starting at the top button, and ending parallel to the first two. Do the same as the second, smoothing out the fabric. Next, start on the first line of basting, level with the top button, and begin to baste a curved line towards the armhole. Absolutely still making sure to smooth out the fabric so that there isn't any excess fabric atop the canvas between the bastes. Stop at least 2.5 centimeters from the top and side of the dart, secure the thread and start to curve around the armhole towards the point where the first baste finished, being sure not to get too close to the armhole, or it may make attaching the sleeve more difficult than it needs to be. On the bottom half of the jacket now, start below the baste between the first and the break line, baste towards the hem, hand railing the curve, and stop shy about 2.5 centimeters up from the mark stitching. As with the first, smoothing it down over the canvas as you go. This time, we need to put easing in, promoting the jacket to move inwards. Maybe you want a weight or some pins to trap said easing. Start the next line of basting below the line next to the break line. Smooth a small amount of fabric towards the other line, follow the curve again, and secure the thread in the same place as the first. Flip the canvas over and feel through the chalk around the welts of the pocket. If you cut that rectangle out, you should be able to move the whole pocket to the other side of the body canvas. If not, just keep chopping away until you can. And obviously it's a different story with patch pockets and whatever. Flip the jacket back over and put something between the body canvas and the pocket so that you won't sew through it. Start on top around the middle of the pocket and baste towards the front, and then down the front and back towards the middle. Then straight down to the finished hem from there, being sure to clear out any excess, ending a little above the first two bastes on the bottom. After this point, because we shaped the canvas earlier, we don't want to fold it too harshly anymore. Cut away all of the canvas so that it's flush with the forepart. Turn it over, from the top of the dart at the base of the armhole, trim the canvas down in a curve to where we cut the canvas for its dart, then cut straight down from there to the pocket. For securing the pocket, use a doubled up piece of basting thread to cross-stitch the pocket to the body canvas. Cross-stitch along the top, starting around halfway over and to just below the facing of the pocket, without catching any of the front fabric. This is a permanent stitch and it can't be too tight, otherwise it'll pull when used, and we don't really want that. Use some thread or needles to copy the break line onto the demette. Trim away the demette and the chest canvas at the break line. Then trim off another 1/2 centimeter of the chest canvas. Put some Silesia underneath the lapel and copy off the break line. Cut the Silesia flush with the edge of the lapel and 2 centimeters above the break point. Mark and cut along a line 1 centimeter past the break line. Both lapels should probably be identical, so you can use doubled up Silesia and cut the two that you need at once. Lay it between your fabric and the body canvas as you cut it, so flush with the edge. Baste them together along the break line, still smoothing the fabric over the canvas from the baste just next to the break line. Then, again, baste inside the edge of the lapel. Cut a piece of lining or Silesia 4 centimeters wide and exceeding the length of the break line. Lay one end at the top of the lapel 1 centimeter over the demette. Baste it in place with a couple of stitches at the top. At the bottom of the demette, chalk a mark between the bridle and the demette. You're going to pull the bridle down, making a centimeter difference between the marks you made, thereby putting easing into the canvas. Baste the easing in down to the bottom of the demette, which similarly keeps it above the top button. Secure the other side of the bridle as well to the lapel. Shrink the canvas and ease in place with some steam and iron. with something under the chest in order to keep its shape. Start by either basting or chalking along the mark-stitched line of the lapel all the way up and across for the effect of seeing the border of where you need to stop padding. Then, mark where you want a notch on the lapel. In my case, about half the width is 4 cm from the tip, and mark between 1 and 1.5 cm above it. You'll pad stitch up to there. Start on the Demet side of the bridle. The needle has to move towards the edge of the lapel. I try to keep the stitches about 1.5 cm from each other, and keep them narrow as well. The first 3 rows are padded flat to keep the bridle in place. Then, after that, we're shaping the canvas. It's very similar to padding the chest canvas, except you definitely need to only catch the smallest possible amount of fabric. In a similar vein, use a thread of the same colour of fabric where available. By virtue of what you're doing, you may need to undo the top bit of the basting on the lapel if it gets tight. Don't pull the stitches too tight, otherwise you may not be able to press in the ease that is created. You'll run out of thread a few times, I'm sure you can figure that one out. Depending on the size of the lapel, you'll need around 7 meters of thread, and I like to split that into 1 1/5 meter lengths. When you get to the top and bottom of each line, start the next stitch halfway down the last. I go into more detail in general in the lesson 1 video. Don't cross the border that you chalked, which sounds dumb to say, but somehow I managed to do it my first time. Secure the last stitch in the very top corner. I suppose I'll also link an unlisted version in the description again. Heavily water the bridle and canvas, place something under the chest, and proceed to iron out all the moisture. It seems kind of redundant giving it shape to iron it flat again, but I guess the forefathers knew what they were doing. Remove the various bits of redundant basting as applicable, like on the lapel and holding the bridle in place. Having decided where you want the notch on the lapel to start, mark it straight up to the top of your inlay, usually around half the lapel width like I said. Maybe also mark on the break line to check the width of the lapel, as it may have changed amongst the padding. Chalk the mark stitched front seam all the way to the hem, only a little beyond the edge of the curve, and chalk the hem with a straight line as well. Where the curve stops being a curve, mark the point 3 cm beyond that on the hem. Chalk that up to the edge of the inlay from there. Give the entire front line that you just chalked a centimetre seam allowance from the notch to the 3 cm point that you marked on the hem. Cut away that seam allowance. Mark the hem onto the body canvas as well, and cut that away, if a little higher, like 1 millimetre. And then flip it canvas side up, and cut away 1 centimetre of the body canvas all the way up to the notch. I didn't trust myself to eyeball 1 centimetre, so I chalked it onto the canvas. On the other jacket front, you need to make sure they're done identically. Chalk the marked stitches and seam allowances so that you can line up your first to the second. Pin or place them together, starting at the break point, and you want them flat against each other, matching the break lines and hems. And cut away the second side. Remove the pins and cut away the canvas in the same place, so cutting away below the hem and 1 centimetre all the way up to the notch. Remove any remaining mark stitches along the front of the jacket. You need bias tape now. It's lining or linen or silesia cut on the bias. You can buy it as a roll, or you can cut a few meters of your lining on the bias 2 centimeters wide. If you get it on the roll, you want to stretch it a little bit with the iron, and baste it to the edge down the middle of the edge tape. Once you get to the curve, secure the baste and start to pull on the tape as you continue to baste around the curve. Having gotten around the curve, secure the baste again and baste flat to the end of the canvas. If done right, the tape is going to bow, pull, and or curve around the curve, so iron it flat and give the rest of the tape a cursory iron too. At the top, you can either have used one piece and fold it at the corner, or use a fresh piece and line some more bias tape up to the top of the lapel and baste it flat. To secure the edge tape, you'll need about 4 meters of thread for both fronts. You'll likely start at the top and the bottom of the edge tape on the left and right jacket respectively, and we're slip stitching the tape to the canvas only, not going through to the fabric. At the edge tape on the top of the lapel, you need to secure around it ending, or starting as appropriate, on the shoulder line side at the notch. Keep the stitches around 1 centimeter between themselves, so relatively dense, because that's what's holding the canvas in place when the facing is machined on, and leave the basting in for now.